Hello lovelies, and welcome to episode 1 of Questrified's Movie Monday. This is time for me to review a movie, and I will be joined later with my partner in crime Bray for our final thoughts on the movie The Purge. Released in 2013, written and directed by James DeMonaco, and produced by Blumhouse and Platinum Dunes. I decided on this movie as the 5th and final Purge film. The Forever Purge is due to be released next month, so what better time? The opening credits try to take you inside the Purge as security cameras display image after image of people getting murked in the streets. The movie opens with the man Ethan Hawke as James Sandin, the greatest security salesman ever. So much so that he has just added a new addition onto his house. He is kicking ass and taking names down at the security company. The neighbors are not happy about it. They are damn mad that he's getting all this wealth and just throwing it in their faces. They are so enraged that they don't invite the Sandins to the neighborhood purge party. James Sandin has the normal family, a wife struggling with thoughts of being married to a security salesman, a daughter dealing with her apparently older boyfriend, but not really that much older, old enough to get James to disapprove of the relationship, and a son who is a bit strange. He builds weird robot-like items to spy on his family, has a panic room, and is just a little of a hypochondriac. Or he's really sick. We don't know. The movie does not tell us. The movie not cluing us in on things will be a common theme throughout. It is the night of the annual Purge. The Purge is a government-sanctioned event when all crime is legal for exactly 12 hours. There are no emergency services, so if you are unfortunate enough to get sick or hurt, don't call 911, because they ain't coming till the Purge is done. Now this is supposed to reduce crime and help the economy. How? I don't know. The movie does not tell us. James Sandin arrives at home with his purge flowers, which will be placed outside to show his family's support of the purge. Why would you support this? I understand that he makes his money off of this, but what rational, compassionate, decent person would support people roaming through the streets just murking everyone they come into contact with? The property damage alone would be in the millions, and imagine the cleanup the next day of all the dead. Despite all crime being legal, murder is the crime most opted for. The Sandin family sit down to dinner before the annual purge message scrolls across the television and the loud siren bellows out, warning all those who don't want to purge to get off the streets and telling all those who want to purge that it's go time. This year the family is conflicted about the purge. Mary Sandin, played by Lena Headey, is questioning her life choices, as is depicted by her constant glances at her wedding rings. I guess she is getting tired of James and his security systems. The Sandin daughter Zoe, played by Adelaide Kane, receives a surprise when she finds out that her older boyfriend, Henry, played by Tony Euler, has hidden in the house until the security system was armed. He tells Zoe that he plans to have it out with her father, and that he has every right to date her because she is mature for her age. Now, as an audience member, you immediately recognize that the reason this man has shown up on this night, Purge night, is because he's going to purge James Sandin. However, Miss Maturity over here does not see it coming in the slightest. Charlie, played by Max Burkholder, is also getting up to mischief on his own. He has been spying on his father and watching both the newscast of the Purge, because that is a thing, and the security cameras around his house. He spots a man screaming for help as gunshots are heard in the distance, because the best thing you can do when you are hiding from someone is to scream at the top of your lungs. Charlie takes pity on the man and disarms the security system in order to let him in. James notices that the system has been disarmed and immediately goes to secure his house again. He finds Charlie yelling at the homeless man to hurry and get in. The man is successful and hides out in the home. James is quite cross with Charlie and begins a search in his massive house for the homeless man, who is played by Edwin Hodge. As James enters the foyer, Henry is coming down the stairs to have his heart-to-heart with James. He pulls out a gun and tries to take James out, but it's Ethan Hawke, so he fires back, hitting Henry, who then retreats with Zoe up to her bedroom. I like how James just fires up in the direction that his daughter is standing in without any hesitation. Henry soon dies and Zoe's very emotional. She kind of dips in and out for the rest of this movie. Charlie uses his baby doll robot to locate the homeless man in the gigantic house and help lead him to Charlie's panic room for safekeeping. Charlie then hears from Zoe stating that she's going to go to Charlie's safe space. Charlie panics and knows that the man he helped save is in there and might, murk her. So much for trust on Purge Night. She goes into the safe space and is captured by the homeless man who holds her hostage. But James and Mary do get the upper hand. Before James finds the homeless man, a polite leader played by Reese Wakefield of a weird purge group comes knocking at the Sandins' front door. He comments that they must be good people and would never deny them the right bestowed upon them by the government, their right to purge. He gives this long monologue without even knowing if the Sandins can hear him. Although the weird purgers did not see where the homeless man ran to, they picked the right house on the first try. They want the man back in order to cleanse their souls. They give James Sandin a set amount of time to deliver the man onto them alive. James instantly cowers to them and says something like, "Hey, my dudes, it's a big house. We just added on the addition. I got to find the man first, but I fully support the purge. Look at my blue flowers." After saving their daughter, James and Mary attempt to tie the homeless man to a chair so that he can be delivered to the weird purgers outside, but not before Mary shanks him a whole bunch of times. After the shanking, Mary asks herself, "What am I doing? What have I become?" They decide to stand and fight the weird purgers that are outside, but leave the homeless guy messed up and tied to a chair. Classy. The weird purgers know exactly how to counteract all of James' security, or they just listen to James himself list off to his son all the ways they could get into the house, like he's Bubba listing off all the ways you can eat shrimp. Either or. They come in, and the first one they find is Charlie, who decided to hide in the basement. Kinda. He wasn't being too stealthy at it. His dad saves the day, and it takes out a few of the weird purgers. Just when you think that James Sandin, top security salesman, has a chance at winning over the weird purgers, the polite leader decides to cleanse him by running a gnarly-looking blade straight into him. James is able to get back to his wife and son before the leader hones in on them. Zoe arrives just in time to shoot the politeness right out of the leader. He is dead, and so is our beloved salesman James Sandin. But there are still purgers outside the Sandin home. The neighbors have decided to leave their annual purge party and come to the aid of their wealthiest neighbor. They take out the rest of the weird purgers and let themselves into the Sandin home. Mary is ever thankful and shows gratitude. But it is short-lived, as the Sandin family will soon be. The neighbors are tired of the Sandins and their wealth. Wealth that they only got by James selling them not-so-secure security systems. How dare he do such a thing? Why did they buy them from him? If they didn't like James or didn't want to see James succeed, go to another person or company. They sell purge flower bouquets. I am sure that James had a competitor in town. And then they wouldn't have had to see the wealth. Once again, the movie doesn't tell us why this plot line is here. Before the neighbors get a chance to cleanse their souls by finishing off the last of the Sandins, the homeless guy comes back out to save the family. It's like, I'll scratch your back if you stop shanking me and allow me to scratch yours. This isn't the only time that the homeless man was selfless. He did ask James to take him outside so that the Sandin family would be safe. It was a moment you might have missed because James and Mary had just acted like savages when capturing, shanking, and tying this poor man to a chair. But yeah, that happened. Mary decides that the purge for her ends tonight. She keeps the neighbors in her house at gunpoint as she waits for the purge to end promptly at 7 a.m. When it is over, she kicks him out of her house. That neighborhood is gonna be awkward for the next little while, and you better hope that during next year's purge, they don't come back. Or perhaps it was just James they wanted to see dead. I don't know. This movie doesn't tell you anything about certain plot lines. This family doesn't get revisited in any of the sequels. The homeless man leaves, and that is it. The movie is over. Did James die in vain? Did he die for something that he didn't even believe in? I'm just trying to leave you with as many questions as this movie does. So now I'm going to bring in Bray, and we're going to discuss our final thoughts for the movie The Purge. Bray?
Yeah?
What are your final thoughts on this movie?
My final thoughts on this movie is that it is quite a boring film, and this movie really takes the slowest approach.
Was it a good start to the Purge franchise?
Not really. I think that it leaves a lot to imagine, but in the end I am kind of shocked that this movie allowed for a 5-film franchise and a 2-season TV show.
It was a TV show?
Yeah, It's 2 seasons to it.
I mean, it's got Ethan Hawke in it, but that's about all it has really going for it.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke and I think the polite leader are the two things that like stand out, because no one really gives two fucks about Charlie or Ethan Hawke's wife or his daughter. No one cares about the whole subplot about the boyfriend not being accepted by the family or something.
That was kind of shoehorned in there, the boyfriend.
And I feel it kind of also really handles a bad twist with the whole neighbors at the end. That felt like it was shoehorned in. And it also makes no sense like why these one purgers are also going after this just one person out of an entire group of homeless people. They only want this one guy. And it makes no sense why they're at so hard on for this one guy. And it makes no sense.
How did they identify the house he went into?
Yeah, and as the series goes on, you see they all have these iconic masks. But nowadays, like, I remember when this movie came out, that mask was like a big craze. But nowadays, it pales in comparison to like the evil George Washington, evil Abraham Lincoln masks that they threw in for election year. This movie, it just has a lot of problems to it. I'm shocked that it allowed for a 5-film franchise into it and the 2-season show. But I guess not every first film in a series is always going to land it. No first film is going to be like a Halloween. You're going to have a few Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's not one you can watch over and over again.
Yeah, I would say that there's better films in this series to watch more than this one. I would, if you had a choice to pick out of the current 4 films that are available to watch, I would say you watch something other than The Purge. The Purge is too focused in on one group of people and too condensed, I guess. When you think about Purge, you think about people being stuck in these massive like cities having to deal with the purgers coming after them. But this film is so different from the sequels as they came through.
I think any movie that has to do the establishment of the story, always suffers.
I feel like the only film I can think of that has nailed that establishment and actually is the best of the series so far is Halloween from 1978. You start off with a whole like quote about what's happened in America and why we're here at this point in the Purge, and then you get like a highlight reel of all the purges prior to the one we're about to see as they go and kill all sorts of people. But you're still left wondering how is this actually benefiting our country? How is this doing anything? Well, they never explain that aspect.
That's the big thing about this movie, is it doesn't explain a lot of things.
That's why I hated it.
Yeah, I gave it a chance because of Sinister. I thought Sinister was a good movie. It was also from Blumhouse. It had Ethan Hawke in it, but this movie was... I don't even think this really should be considered a horror movie.
I think it's in the same regard as like Jurassic Park or The Crow or Mortal Kombat. It's a horror-adjacent title, I think. It falls in the same vein as possibly Alien. And as Alien progressed, it became more and more action-focused. So I think that's what this is. It went from being pretty good horror, like, with it, but then as the series progressed, it went too much into action.
Yeah, it moved away from horror.
Yeah, and people, if you haven't seen it, but you watch just once, possibly in a lifetime.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough.
Okay, so next week we'll be looking at Purge Anarchy, and how are you feeling about that?
Watching it for the first time ever, I'm very disappointed, because I thought that was the film that turned The Purge into what it is now, but it...
Yeah, and in this review I said, after watching it, you wish for this movie, the first Purge. Well, not the first Purge.
The original Purge.
The original Purge movie. The first one in the franchise. But that is our final thoughts then on The Purge. That closes that door, that book, that movie. So thank you for joining me, Bray, and...
You're welcome on this for having me come on and review on this very bland horror film.
We'll see you next week for The Purge Anarchy. Okay, take care of yourselves. Bye.